And welcome back to Prudential Center. His road trip ended with a 34-save performance versus the Canucks. That's Cory Schneider. He was named the second star of the game. The only issue is that the goalie at the opposite end that night, Ryan Miller, was named the first star. He'll deal with his brother Drew tonight as part of the Red Wings team, and the Devils not getting the Red Wings #1 in goal. It is not Jimmy Howard who beat them earlier this year, but 22-year-old Czech Peter Mrazek, a fifth-round pick in 2010. He started just one other game this season. He won it. That was at Winnipeg, November 20th.
Red Wings select to go with the young goaltender in spot duty last year, Steve. He showed he's got the capabilities of being a top netminder in the National Hockey League. 11
NHL games over the previous 2 seasons, and we're underway. Hope your Thanksgiving weekend is going splendidly. Glad you're spending part of it with us tonight. This is Justin Abdelkader, number 8 for the Red Wings, on the puck, and early pressure here from Detroit. Puck taken away by Jaromir Jagr and played across to the stick of Andy Green, who fires in. Tonight's lineups are brought to you by Infinity, luxury cars that deliver inspired performance. It is a mixed bag of forwards tonight for the Devils. This first unit that comes on, Dainius Zubrus with Jaromir Jagr and Adam Henrique. The combinations will take a bit to get used to, but the shot by Henrique and the follow-up try by Jagr is deflected away from goal.
I saw some net presence. Johnny Mack talked about the Detroit Red Wings being so efficient at, and I think the Devils have to do more of that. Henrique with the shot. You got to get some caroms once in a while. Close call there.
Taken away here by the Devils, and the puck played ahead by David Severson. Into the Red Wings end. This is an icing call. 1 minute into play.
Steve, you mentioned Coach Jabbour really shuffling up his lines. Getting shut out in Vancouver last game, you want to try some things to get a spark in your lineup, and he's mixed and matched everything here, hoping to find some chemistry amongst a few different guys, and we will see if it works.
Off the draw, controlled here by the Red Wings. That shot gloved away by Cory Schneider, and another quick whistle for a stoppage in play 5 seconds later. Faceoff stays to the left of Cory Schneider. Net partially came off the mooring there, and Patrick Elias into the circle against Pavel Datsyuk, who wins the draw back, and the shot by Kyle Quincy is deflected out of play. Well, Mike Babcock is the longtime coach of the Detroit Red Wings. He's not under contract beyond this season, and there's widespread belief that he's the coach in waiting in Toronto, that he will be Brendan Shanahan's choice to lead the Leafs. That's speculation that's not fair to Randy Carlyle, a coach like Babcock, who's won the Stanley Cup himself, but such is the way the wind blows in Toronto from time to time when the team is covered.
Well, Mike Babcock's going to have a lot of options if that's what he chooses to leave Detroit. Again, Wings having a solid season, and it doesn't matter who seems to be in the lineup. Guys from the minors, injured players.
Andy DeKaiser plays it across, and the follow-up shot by Quincy is covered again by Cory Schneider. 12-5-5 of the Red Wings coming into this game.
Yeah, it really is remarkable at times when you think about the injuries they had last year with Datsyuk and Zetterberg, their 2 stars, and they just bring those guys up from the minors in Grand Rapids, and they seem to fit in seamlessly and continue to produce and impress throughout the league.
Interesting mix the Red Wings have had for the longest time. There's a great European influence on the team. Everybody knows about the history of great Swedish players that they've produced. Datsyuk, the Russian, Zetterberg, the Swede, and also just enough local flavor. 4 guys from Michigan on the roster currently, as this puck pops up high and taken here, lifted away by Adam Larsson. Shoveled across, and quickly on the puck, Elias looking for Mike Camilleri, cutting in front, and he's defended well by the center, Riley Sheahan. Jarred loose to the point and taken here. Shot by Jelena, taken in front. Here's Camilleri, loose in front. Elias trying to finish up, but finishing means going into the glove of Peter Mrazek, who made the stop.
Great opportunity for Patrick Elias right in front. Camilleri, good work in the corner, gets it back to Jelena. Puck bounces. Camilleri sees a streaking Elias, and Mrazek there to gobble it up. And this is what the Devils need more of. Yeah, it didn't go in. You can't get frustrated, but you have to get more guys going to the net hard, get more shots in net, and that was a nice chance.
Off the draw, here's Michael Ryder sweeping behind the net, tries to one-hand it in front, and that's Mrazek who holds it against the side of the net. Took a knock to the side of the face mask. He's okay.
Detroit Red Wing, Gustav Nyquist, really developed into a upper echelon player in this league starting last March, Steve, where the rest of the way, or last season, March and April, he was top of the league in goal scoring, has 10 more this year, and you can tell that he paid his dues in the minors for quite some time and now become one of the better National Hockey League forwards. Great speed, great hands, and quick shot.
Turnaround try by the Red Wings, and that's Drew Miller, the brother of Ryan. And we have some activity at the side of the net. That's Tomas Jurco swinging right and left. This doesn't appear all that nasty.
And it looks Marek Zidlitsky in front, going at it with him, and this is something else I feel. I know the Devils don't have a lot of snarl in their lineup, especially with Ryan Clough out, but show some emotion, and that's what they did in front of the net here. The Red Wings, who play a pretty clean, crisp game. We're going to see a couple of penalties here, though, but it's something. Get emotional, get involved,
Detroit,
and that's what Zidlitsky does there.
New Jersey, number 2, 2 minutes each for roughing. 4-on-4.
Jurco and Zidlitsky, 2 minutes each for roughing, which is kind of what we expected, and we'll watch a little 4-on-4 here. 2:05 in. Marek Zidlitsky took a nasty shot off the right foot in the previous game. There was some concern about his availability. He shook all of that off at practice this morning, saying he was A-OK to go. One change defensively, Eric Shelina back in. Rookie Seth Helgeson is the player who takes the seat tonight. Forward tandem for the Devils, it's Adam Henrique, who works with Jaromir Jagr. Off the draw, Damon Severson collecting here for New Jersey. 20-year-old rookie defenseman who's played all 23 so far this year. Crisp outlet pass, picks up Andy Green. He shoots, and that's fought off by Mrazek. Rebound, loose in front, they score! Crashing in front, Jaromir Jagr, and the Devils take the early lead.
Exactly what the Devils were looking for after being shut out that we mentioned in Vancouver. Steve, is an early goal. Feel a little better about your offensive game, and this starts with a great outlet pass from Damon Severson to his partner, Andy Green, streaking down the left side with more room. 4-on-4 here, and there you see Jaromir Jagr. Talked about it, got to get to the net, and he just pokes at this puck, able to chip it over Mrazek as well as the defenseman Ouellet. So the Devils take a lead 1-0, but all the little things that have been missing as of late, Steve, and there's Jaromir Jagr moving up the charts.
Number 6 all-time now as he passes Mike Gartner, one of the great field goal scorers of his time. Next up on that list would be Phil Esposito at 7-17. And Jagr knows that that took entirely too long.
I'm not sure what Zetterberg discussing with the referees. Maybe about being thrown out of the circle earlier on against Adam Henrique, and Henrique ends up winning the next draw. Great breakout out of the Devils' end. A couple of quick passes.
Severson and Green help to create that, and off the draw, it's taken here by Damon Severson again. Shoveled across, here's Mike Camilleri. Pumps it in deep by Danny DeKeyser, and the puck taken away by Jakob Kindl. So the 1-0 lead for the Devils, less than 3 minutes into tonight's game. What a challenging stretch of the schedule this begins tonight. They're coming off the tough Western Canadian trip. Red Wings tonight, who've played well. Islanders first place in the Metropolitan Division tomorrow. The Penguins are waiting for them on Tuesday. Peter Harold on the move here for New Jersey. His second NHL game this season, collected by Zajac and across to Adam Larson.
His fourth of the season, assisted by number 6, Andy Green.
For Jaromir Jagr, that's goal number 4. Andy Green, the primary assist on the goal. And Patrick Elias gets the other. Worked across, Xavier Ouellet. Puck got by his stick, and offside on the play are the Red Wings. Jagr from Green and Elias at 2:18.
Take a look at the goal, starting right in the Devils' end. There you see Adam Henrique ties up Nyquist, the other centerman, the faceoff, and Severson allows Severson to pick that puck up in the faceoff circle, and he feeds Green streaking, beat the first man with the pass, and there's Jagr. Jaromir Jagr going hard to the net and able to poke that puck over the goaltender and Ouellet, the defenseman. But that all started with Severson. Nice pass, and he didn't even get an assist on the play, Steve. Looks like Marty Havlat off for hooking here, and Devils penalty kill, which has been much better the last 5 or 6 games, has some work again.
4-on-3 power play here for the next 42 seconds of play, and then the conventional 5-on-4. Niklas Kronwall to the stick of Pavel Datsyuk. Work back to Zetterberg and played across. Taken by Kronwall. That puck loose in front, and Corey Schneider is able to cover up.
Dangerous bouncing puck. Kronwall's shot was deflected up high and ended up being a changeup on Schneider. He's able to track that puck down and cover it up. Well, Corey Schneider was one of the lone Devils that was a shining light or a bright star in the loss in Vancouver.
Off the draw, taken here by Adam Larson. Stolen by the Red Wings, and Datsyuk works it back to Zetterberg. 3 forwards and Niklas Kronwall on the 4-on-3 power play for Detroit. Here's Henrik Zetterberg. Kronwall, he shoots, he scores! Niklas Kronwall with a bullet that beat the screen, Corey Schneider. And just like that, the Red Wings tie the game.
You know, this Red Wing team, you put them on the power play. They got a lot of guys that can create, make plays. You're going to see a beautiful little pass right here from Zetterberg. Kronwall and him switch there, and he just puts it right in the wheelhouse of Niklas Kronwall. All he does is take the one-timer quick shot and able to beat Corey Schneider before he gets set between the legs. 5-hole, and this game is tied up. And look at in front of the net. Good presence there by Riley Sheahan, screening Schneider a little bit.
So Kronwall, the hit machine, age 33, now in his 11th year for the Red Wings. Every now and then keeps you honest with that shot as well. That's his 2nd goal of the season to tie it up. Just want to go back to the Devils' goal, too, Downer. They're announcing the 2nd assist as Elias. We believe that has to be changed to Damon Severson, who started the whole outlet in his own zone. We'll wait for that, but right now they're giving it to Elias. Collected here by Jelena and to the stick of Jaromir Jagr. Important for the rookie because he has no points since November 1st.
He made a great pass there. I thought he should have been on the score sheet. I didn't know if somebody else had touched it along the way, but didn't appear to. It was Andy Green, the shot and the rebound.
Fighting his way into the Detroit end, Dinas Zubras. Puck taken away by Jonathan Eriksson and worked here to the stick of Johan Franzen. Franzen, one of those players who always seems to play well against New Jersey. Schneider works it across. Andy Green picks up Steven Gianta. Devils in transition here. Steve Bernier puts the brakes on and plays it in deep. Those two on with Jacob Josephson in the Red Wing zone. Here's Sheahan trying to shovel it out of the zone. Picked up instead by Gianta and worked across to Severson. Ouellette, the young defenseman, tries to get it out of the zone and does. Better than 5 minutes played. Each team with a goal early on this Friday night at the Rock. Here's the Czech-born defenseman Jakob Kindl, who plays it back to Ouellette. 21-year-old, French-born, not French-Canadian, but born in Bayonne, France. Zetterberg checked by Travis Zajac, and the puck taken away by Ruutu to the stick of Marek Zidlitsky. Lifts it high into the Red Wing zone. Here's Ruutu playing it across. Follow-up try by Michael Ryder. It pops over the net high.
Real good hustle by Ruutu. A good scoring chance.
Gustav Nyquist into the zone. He shoots. That's gloved away by Schneider. Collected by Ryder, but the puck taken back by Zetterberg for Detroit. Here's Henrik Zetterberg at the circle. Plays it across. That's picked off. Good anticipation by Zajac and sends Ryder back the other way. Zajac playing with Ruutu and Ryder for the first time this season.
I just heard, Steve, they're awarding that goal to Riley Sheahan, so he must have got a piece of it in front. Looked like it was a clean goal by Kronwall, but
another try save made by Schneider. That's coming off the stick of Luke Glendening. And backhanded by Glendening, right back in deep. The master of all things video, Larry Gaines, will let us know if indeed it holds up that way as Schneider makes a stop in front and worked ahead to Martin Havlat. Laid off by Camilleri well. Picks up Patrick Elias. Centering try, but that's stolen away by Quincy. Detroit Red Wings are hot. Winners of 4 of their last 5, including the 5-2 win over the Flyers on Wednesday night. Picked up by Datsyuk and skated away by the 36-year-old Russian. Pavel Datsyuk over the line, able to drop this. Quick shot is blocked away in front.
Devils got caught with only 3 men on the ice. They were confused on the line change, giving Detroit numbers coming over the blue line.
Here's Jágr back the other way with the full complement of 5, but that pass behind everyone, and Weiss skates it back the other way. 3-on-2 for Detroit, but they're offside, gaining the zone. We'll step aside. 12.5 to go in the opening period. Devils and Red Wings 1-1.
Let's go back to the Red Wings goal. You see Sheahan right in front of the net. Kronwall winds up, and he just gets a little piece of that, Steve, to redirect it through the 5-hole of Corey Schneider.
So we'll readjust the goal there. It is a power play goal by the Red Wings. Sheahan, that's going to be his 5th. Kronwall and Zetterberg now credited with the assist.
It was even difficult to see from there that it redirected just a little bit, but just enough to throw Corey Schneider off, because if he does not get a piece of that, that's probably a routine stave for Corey Schneider. And Sheahan with that net front presence Johnny Mack talked about in the opening, you've got to be able to try and move these Red Wings, although they outnumbered the Devils with the power play.
From St. Catharines, Ontario, Riley Sheahan. He's likely a full-time NHL player moving forward. Split time between the Red Wings and the AHL last year. Picked up here by Sheahan in the corner as it's worked away from Jaromir Jágr. Puck taken away by Henrique, and he gives to Dainis Zubras. Adam Henrique bumped by De Keyser and knocked down on the play. Tomas Tatar, the Slovakian winger, works it away for Detroit. And here's Franzen bearing down on Severson. First man into the corner, big Johan Franzen. Bernier ahead for Gianta. He tries to chop it out of the zone, and now Zubras sends it back into the Detroit end. Second of 3 meetings between the teams this season. Detroit won the first back in November. They'll meet for the 3rd and final time in the regular season. New Year's Eve at Joe Louis Arena. Jelena puts the brakes on. Left the puck behind him. Now collected again by the Devils and skated away by Josephson. Back in his own zone, Ouellet plays it across to Kindle. Xavier Ouellet, 2nd-round pick for the Red Wings back in 2011. Defenseman Brendan Smith not back yet from an injured hand. This puck taken away by Josephson for New Jersey. They'll complete the change and now get the proper numbers on. Michael Ryder into the corner. Able to shake loose of one Red Wing. Josephson hit by Kindle behind the net. Nyquist tries to backhand it out of the zone, and now on a second try, able to punch it to center. Worked across to the stick of Zidlitsky. Able to drop this. Route 2 shot is gloved by Mrazek. Well, congratulations. Milestone for Andy Green. His 500th National Hockey League game is tonight. That means his 500th as a Devil, the only team he's played for. Undrafted, this is one of those good stories. Miami University of Ohio. You remember his rookie year, he played 23 games. They couldn't take him out come playoff time. Devils beat Tampa Bay in the opening round. He never went back to the AHL again. He's the cornerstone of the defense now, some 7 years later.
He is bringing great veteran leadership, calming influence on the back end, and you see a lot of players that are late bloomers, and Andy Green, undrafted like you mentioned, Steve, has been a real good one for the Devils for a long time.
Played back into the Devils' end here, and Peter Harold able to collect this. 1-1 game as it's punched across to the stick of Travis Zajac, and he picks up Ryder. Return pass picked off by Darren Helm, who punches it back in deep. Helm playing with Datsyuk and Stephen Weiss, 3 centers, natural centers, playing together on the same line. Green works it back. Big shot by Tuomo Ruutu is stopped in front by Mrazek and punched ahead by the Red Wings. Here's Weiss, one of those pivot men I mentioned, and back to deal with him is Severson.
Devils shooting the puck more, and something that we certainly felt they had to do more of instead of looking for that extra pass. Getting pucks to the net. More shots you get, more opportunities to score goals.
7-6 the shot disparity now in favor of the Devils. Pretty even there. Absolutely even on the scoreboard. Larson took a hit, but gets it out to center. Martin Havlat trying to get to the loose puck, but it deflects into the Red Wings bench. Better than halfway through period one. 1-1 at Prudential Center.
Welcome back. Used to seeing Martin Brodeur in red. You may have seen him today in blue, as in a St. Louis Blues uniform. We know that general manager in St. Louis, Doug Armstrong, said he needs to see Marty Brodeur practice for at least a week before he'll make some kind of a decision. Our own John McClain coming up on the GMC Intermission Report talked to the coaching staff in St. Louis, and we'll get his thoughts on perhaps Marty in St. Louis coming up, guys.
My, what a strange sight that was, seeing him in that sweater today, Dano.
I was just going to say, obviously when you play with one franchise for 20-plus seasons and you put on a different uniform, it's going to look awkward. I certainly wish Marty the best, and I wouldn't bet against him.
Doug Armstrong, as Deb told you, wants about a week of seeing Brodeur in practice. We all know this. There are always factors that can either speed up or slow that process. So don't go far away from the Twitter universe for breaking news, I would suppose. This is icing against the Devils as Kronwall wins the race back. Well, a big part of the Red Wings all of a sudden is Stephen Weiss. He scored twice in his second game back from injury earlier this week versus Ottawa. He erupted in joy. Why not? He scored his first goal since October of 2013. Injury's the story for this man. He missed 56 games last year due to sports hernia surgery. And the Red Wings this week have to be wondering, as Ouellette's shot is gloved by Corey Schneider, whether or not they finally have the player in Stephen Weiss that they thought they were getting when they signed him for 5 years and a lot of money.
Yeah, they made a big commitment to Stephen Weiss, and you mentioned injuries have played a part in lack of production. It just makes the Red Wings that much stronger, and he's come back and played pretty well in a short time here.
No stranger to Pete DeBoer, the relationship that they had as coach and top-line center for a good time in Florida. Off the draw, DeKeyser across, and that's rifled wide off the stick of Kyle Quincy. This puck got through to Schneider off the stick of Larson, and the Devils now just trying to work this out of harm's way. To the stick of Zubris and punched across where Jágr will give chase. It's another icing call against New Jersey, though.
Speaking of Stephen Weiss, remember him 3 years ago in the Devils' first round on the great run to the Stanley Cup Finals. Stephen Weiss was a Devils killer, especially on the power play. He had a big effect, and that was a tough series against a young Florida Panther team that just wouldn't quit.
What a great series, and how it all took off from there. Ensuing wins over the Flyers in round two. The Rangers in this building to clinch the Stanley Cup semifinals, and then on to the final where it finally ended against the LA Kings. Quincy works this ahead for Detroit. Darren Helm deflects into the Devils' end. Here's Larson. Got by everyone. Let's do this again, shall we? Another icing against New Jersey. Lexus brings us a look at the Devils' upcoming schedule. The Islanders tomorrow night on MSG. Our first trip to the Coliseum this year is at 7 o'clock. Crosby and Malkin, two of the top three scorers in the league for the Penguins. That's Tuesday. And then at Toronto coming up Thursday night. Battle along the near boards in the Devils' end as Jágr digs for the loose puck, and it comes here to Adam Henry. 8 minutes to go in the opening period of a 1-1 game. Jágr, the Devils' goal scorer, works it across, and now Zubris able to punch it in deeper. Luke Glendening, the Grand Rapids, Michigan man, on the puck here. He's sealed off by Larson. Harold keeps the puck moving around, and Ruutu guides it away.
Penalty coming up here
against Detroit.
Tripping call. It's going to go to Jakob Lindo, I believe, the defenseman for the Detroit Red Wings. So good opportunity for the Devils here. You mentioned Luke Glendening. Steve, he was a teammate of John Merrill for a couple of years at the University of Michigan. And there you see the trip right in the Devils' end. And the Devils go on the power play, looking to take the lead here.
Henrique, Ryder, and Camilleri, the forwards. They'll go with two defensemen on the power play, and Damon Severson and Marek Zidlitsky. And off the draw, it's Henrique who wins it back. Back to Severson. His shot off the glass behind Peter Mrazek.
basketball team.
Kronwall on the penalty kill threw it in front of his own net, and they got away with it.
Yeah, that shows confidence from Kronwall. That little backhand saucer right in front of his net to Darren Helm, and they're able to clear.
Zidlitsky ahead for Camilleri. Offside is New Jersey here. Henrique just a step ahead of the play. 1:35 to go on the penalty to Jakob Kindl. Devils power play lately. No chances at Vancouver. There's your first problem in the last game of the road trip. 20%, that's top 12 in the NHL. Detroit's penalty kill, second best in the league. Better than 88% efficiency. Ryder guides it around to the stick of Marek Zidlitsky. Played off the boards. Here's Henrique. Puck batted out of midair. Devils trying to keep this in the zone, and they do. Camilleri works it across. Here's Severson. He shoots, and that's blocked in front. Guided back to Zidlitsky. Camilleri now works it across. Played off the boards, and Zidlitsky will take again. Feathers it across, and here's Severson. Across to Zidlitsky. Gives to Ryder. Good puck movement by the Devils. Severson looks to play it down low. Defenseman Zidlitsky worked in deep. Taken here by Camilleri. Pressure by the Devils. What will it lead to as it's punched up high into the corner? Quincy takes the puck. Has it for Detroit. Not out of the zone. Off a stick in front. Zidlitsky fires off the glass, and that went wide. Camilleri able to hold the zone. DeKeyser can't clear. 37 to go on the man advantage. Zidlitsky back here. Detroit needs a change. Devils have the puck. Camilleri shoots. He scores! Mike Camilleri, a power play goal. And the Devils regain the lead.
The power play had not been clicking lately, Steve. We know how good the penalty kill's been, but it's about the timing of a goal, and this is a big goal. This all starts from Kyle Quincy having all kinds of time and not being able to clear the puck. There you see the big rocket from Zidlitsky from the point, goes over the net, and Devils keep it alive against a weary Detroit Red Wing team. You talked about a penalty killer's tired there, Steve, and there's Mike Camilleri doing what he does best and snapping one past goaltender Mrazek, who went down, and he's able to shoot that over the right shoulder. But it all started. Kyle Quincy had all kinds of time to clear the puck, and he was unable to do so as one of the Devils knocked it down.
9th goal of the season from Mike Camilleri. He and Jágr have goals. Josephson on the move here. Looks to get around Kindl and ridden off by Jakob Kindl. Work behind the net. Harold try to hold the zone. It's chopped away by Tomas Jurko to the stick of Zetterberg. What's the top line? The one with Jágr on it or the one with Camilleri? You line up 10 fans, you might have 5 on each side.
Coach DeBoer cares who the #1 line is as long as everybody produces. That's what this Devil team needs.
Jurko collects the pass here. Ran into Larson, and the puck taken here by Jelena, who works it ahead.
I'm curious to watch Steve here. You saw Mrazek go down relatively early. He left a lot of room up top if the Devils can exploit that and keep shooting high.
Popped up into the glove of Corey Schneider with Datsuk and Weiss on the move for Detroit. Schneider and the Devils have the lead back.
Tonight's Cold Hard Facts are brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. And the Cold Hard Facts, Corey Schneider at the Prudential Center, Steve, with a record of 15 wins, 7 losses, 6 ties, and there you see, or overtime losses, shall I say, or shootout losses. And goals against of a sparkling 1.69, save percentage .932. So Corey Schneider's done the job here and hasn't had enough goal support, although in this period so far, with 5 minutes left in the first, he's got 2 from the Devils already.
Well, that was the issue last year for him in this building and in many others. And you saw those statistics include 1 game that he played for the Vancouver Canucks at Prudential Center. But this is home now for Corey and will be for some time.
Go back to the Devils' power play goal. There's Kyle Quincy, all kinds of time with the puck on his forehand. He elects to try to go up the wall. It was knocked down by one of the Devils. There you see they keep it in. DeKeyser had a bad bounce as well, and then the Devils go to work, and the 4 penalty killers were a little bit tired as well for Detroit. That's what happens when you don't clear it. So many times you see it ends up in the back of your net when you have that one opportunity, good opportunity to get the puck out of your zone. And there Kyle Quincy, he could have just rifled that high over everybody, and he elects to try to go up the wall. There was a lot of traffic there from both teams.
Only assist on the goal goes to Marek Zidlitsky. Shot from the point by Jonathan Ericsson went wide and played ahead to the stick of Jaromir Jagr. Able to pick up Peter Harold. Peter Harold in, scores! Second game back with the big club for the Boston College man Peter Harold. What a shot, what a setup. It's 3-1.
Peter Harold, you see the Devils defenseman jumping in. You saw it in the first goal with Andy Green streaking down the wing. Now this time it's Peter Harold. Henrique gets it over to Jagr. Terrific saucer pass to a streaking Harold, and he goes just under the bar. Again, upstairs, Steve, this time over the left shoulder. We saw Camilleri go over the right one, so maybe there's a little vulnerability from Mrazek there. And the Devils are finding the spot, take a 2-goal lead, but heck of a shot by Peter Harold, and I love the way the Devils are breaking the puck out. The best speed and precision with their passing through the neutral zone.
Pavelak to Camilleri, save made by Peter Mrazek. Quick release of Mike Camilleri, maybe his best asset. Back the other way come the Red Wings, putting the brakes on Tatar, and that pass intercepted by Havlat. Here's Gelinas back in his own end. How good must that feel for Peter Harold with Albany of the AHL until the call-up just before the West Coast trip.
And number 14, Adam Henrique.
Here's the goal again, Down.
Take a look at the goal. Henrique slows it down a little in the neutral zone, or shall I say Jagr does, after the pass from Henrique. Feeds Harold streaking down the right side, and he goes upstairs. What a pass by Jaromir Jagr, and Peter Harold makes no mistake. Head up, look at that. Off the one leg and goes just under the bar over the left shoulder to give the Devils a 3-1 lead.
Peter Harold's first goal since 2013. Jagr Henrique with the assists at 15-18. Chased out, Zajac. Ryder steps in against the captain of the Red Wings, Henrik Zetterberg.
Important for the Devils to finish this last 3:53 of the period off strong, Steve.
Off the draw, controlled by Detroit. Nyquist works it in deep. Well, this is role reversal from the game at Joe Louis Arena, where the Devils were outplayed, outshot badly in that game. Jimmy Howard was the goaltender that night. But the game itself has had a much different look as Ryder lifts it away.
Well, I just watched the breakout there and in traffic, and Devils moving the puck stick to stick much better than we've seen, certainly on the last road trip.
Zetterberg lost control at center ice. Here's Ouellet backtracking for Detroit. Under 3.5 to go in the opening period of play. Devils shut out for the second time this season Tuesday night. Respond with 3 goals in the first period so far tonight. Bernier on the puck for New Jersey, works it away. Here's Abdelkader at center ice. His pass intercepted by Andy Green across to Severson. And punched back into the Detroit end. Pass for Datsuk, but he's met at the blue line by Steve Bernier. Eriksson winds it around to the stick of Darren Helm. Top defensive pair on now for Detroit. Eriksson and Kronwall. Here's Bernier in the corner. Hit by Kronwall. Weiss tries to draw the puck loose. Bernier had a chance, but it went wide of the goal. And taken by Weiss in his own end. Ahead for Pavel Datsuk, who gets moving. Here's Datsuk into the Devils zone, met by Andy Green. Puck taken away by Severson. And worked ahead to Josephson.
Smartly lays it down the boards without it becoming an icing. And you saw the fourth line of Gionta, Bernier, and Josephson out against that Zook line. And you can rely on that line. I know Coach DeBoer feels very comfortable with that because they're all responsible and they all have speed, especially Josephson and Gionta.
Offside is the call here. Face-off just outside the Devils zone with 1:57 to go as we get a look at Peter Harold. First goal since March 21st of 2013. That ends a 48-game drought for him.
I know a little about droughts from the back end, Steve. I know that wasn't my role. I went an awful long time without scoring a goal. In fact, it was a record, but thank God I wasn't paid to score goals. But it feels good when you do.
Even if you know that's not the primary mission that you serve your team. That's always in the back of your mind, I suppose.
No question about it, and it always feels good. But Peter Harold is capable of providing some offense, as we know, and he did there.
Devils will use him on the power play.
We got another penalty call against the Red Wings.
Broken stick on the ice, which probably has something to do with that, and it's collected here by Harold. To the bench, Schneider. Devils get the extra attacker on as Jágr plays it across and picks up Elias. Deflected puck. Jaromir Jágr giving chase now to Kaiser. Controls the puck and stops play for Detroit. 1:18 to go. We'll watch the Devil power play go to work again.
I think it was a hook behind the net by Johan Franzen. Right there, he gives the can opener right there to Marek Zidlitsky, and he loses his stick.
2 minutes. Hooking.
He'll go off for hooking. You see right there, players do that so often, we see, and you got to make sure it doesn't get caught in there. You're going to get called for it, and Franzen does. So the Devils have to have that killer instinct. Minute 18 left in the period, up 2 goals. Go get yourself another one.
Have a power play goal already tonight off the stick of Camilleri. Zajac chased out. Elias steps in to take the draw. 4 forwards on the power play for the Devils. Martin Havlat is at the point with Zhelinov. Worked in front again by the Red Wings, and that's Kronwall again. Not shy about putting it in front of his own crease.
This time it was on his forehand.
Havlat leaves for Zhelinov. Minute to go in the period. Here's Havlat at center. Worked across to Zajac. Drops this for Zhelinov. Wrist shot blocked away in front. Elias has to get this away from the streaking Glendening, who left the puck behind him. Otherwise, he was in clear on a shorthanded breakaway.
Boy, Devils got to be careful there. And I'm not sure where Jaromir Jágr was going there, or he didn't realize Glendening was going to be off to the races, because it looked like he stopped skating in the neutral zone. Or he thought Patty had him.
Schneider to the stick of Camilleri. And now Zhelinov. Darren Helm on the penalty kill, disrupting things for Detroit. Time for another rush here, though, as Camilleri works it ahead. Mike Camilleri, beautiful little move, trying to put it on the forehand. Shot from the far side. It's stopped in front. Off the stick of Henrique. He was knocked down. Devils control the puck, though. Severson across for Ryder. Return pass for Severson. 2 seconds and 1. They set it up at the circle, but with that, the first period will come to an end. 42 seconds of carryover time on the penalty to Franzen when the second period begins. A good 20 minutes for New Jersey. They're up 3-1. Well, if you're looking for a fun family night out, purchase a Devils family pack and get 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, and 4 sodas for just $99 on select games, exclusively available at the Prudential Center box office. For families larger than 4, you can add extra tickets at the time of purchase. For more information, visit NewJerseyDevils.com/family. Welcome back. Second period straight ahead here at The Rock with Ken Danico. I'm Steve Cangelosi. The NHL World of Buzz earlier today with Marty Brodeur practicing. That's all the story is now, just practicing and skating with the St. Louis Blues. Whether this turns into an actual contract, we'll find out. I'm wondering always what the conversation is behind closed doors. If you're the Blues, you can't bring Marty Brodeur aboard unless you're going to play him a bit. You can't just put him on the bench for 9 or 10 games. I'm fascinated how this does turn out and what the commitment would be.
Well, obviously, if he comes in for the first few days of practice and can't stop a beach ball with him, we might be saying something different. But a little birdie told me nobody could beat him in day 1, and he's shaking off some rust, you would think. But again, I said at the opening, I'm not betting against Marty Brodeur. You know, he's got the motivation. Yeah, it's difficult seeing him in a different uniform. I wanted him to retire just a Devil. He'll always be a Devil, no question mine, and the rock of the franchise, no question about that. But to see him in a different uniform, you touched on it, Steve, a little bit awkward, but you have to wish him luck. He wants to leave nothing, nothing on the table. He wants to have no second guessing of himself, and he felt like he could still play, and he's getting that opportunity in St. Louis. And for me, for some reason, I feel we're going to hear a lot of Marty Brodeur this year, because the Blues need a winner, a guy that has won championships. Even if he doesn't play a lot of games, just his presence in the locker room, I don't see how it can't help. They don't have a lot of that in St. Louis with a great team.
Team that's never won the Stanley Cup. Marty Brodeur said today, well, it's different around here, and I've only been here for 2 hours. The Devils have a unique culture. unique way the franchise is run. We all know that. Second period beginning now. 42 seconds left on the penalty to Franzen. Quick thought on the opening 20 minutes.
Well, great offensive start for the Devils. It's only 20 minutes. Play the game like it's 0-0. Go back to work because you want to see consistency in a 60-minute game. It starts with the power play here again, even though it's not a full 2 minutes.
And Zidlitsky on the puck for Camilleri. Dragged it away from Kronwall, who tried to meet him at center ice, and now played back in for Camilleri. Henrique back to the point. Zidlitsky has got it. He and Severson, the defenseman, on for the continuation. This is Severson. Sharp angle shot. They score. Camilleri again. Off the feed from Damon Severson. 4-1. The Devils in front.
Well, not too often you see a setup of a one-timer from that sharp of an angle from Mike Camilleri, but that's why he was brought in. He's a guy that knows where the net is at all times. And you see Damon Severson, who's in a good shooting position himself, elects to slide it over to Mike Camilleri. Good puck movement by the Devils. Henrique finds Severson there. He could have shot, but he slides it down low to Mike Camilleri. And goal scorers find that small area to put the puck in the back of the net. Mike Camilleri does that again for his second of the night.
For Mike Camilleri tonight, goals 9 and 10 on the season as the Devils return home, not sluggish after the road trip, but showing more jump and more finishing ability than they have in a bit here as it's played across to Elias.
As I mentioned, the pass from Severson, his second assist of the night, Steve. I thought, shoot, I'm sitting here. He's in a good position, but real nice setup by the Devils.
Redirect by Havlat just goes wide, and the Devils buzzing here and shooting from all angles. Havlat now the wraparound try, but taken off his stick. Glad you pointed that out about Severson because they did get the official scoring change on the first goal that we thought. The assist on the first goal of the night by the Devils, Jaromir Jagr. Multiple point game for Adam Henrique as well, credited with the second assist, and here's Zidlitsky on the move. And Ruutu across for Andy Green. 4-1 Devils lead taken by Ruutu. Return pass from Zajac, and that's fought off by Mrazek.
Another great chance. Devils going to the net hard, getting shots, and Ruutu.
Bouncing puck to the side of Corey Schneider as the Red Wings try to pull one back. Schneider fishing at it at the side of the net. Taken here by the Red Wings and Weiss. Punched out in front. They score. The setup in front.
That's the
Xavier Ouellet.
Yeah, the defenseman Ouellet. You just mentioned it, Steve, standing alone in front. You can't take your foot off the gas against a Detroit Red Wing team that has a lot of skill. You knew they were going to have some pushback here, and you see good work behind the net. Right here by Weiss. He's able to slide the puck over, and this is a really nice pass to Ouellet from Darren Helm. And he finds the back of the net. Red Wings, just like that, make it a 2-goal game again.
First National Hockey League goal for Xavier Ouellet. And 4-2 the story here. So the teams go back and forth in the opening 2 minutes. Here come the Red Wings looking for more. Riley Sheahan with a shot. It's blocked away by Henrique and crashing into the goal, and Corey Schneider.
It's Johan Franzen.
Who else?
Who else is right? The big fella known as the Mule. Always has a presence in front of the net. And here's the bump in of Johan Franzen going to the net on the shot that was blocked, and you see Severson with him. They can't quite stop, and that's a dangerous play for the goaltender there, especially with a man the size of Johan Franzen crashing into you, but Schneider seems no worse for wear on the play.
To the right of Schneider, and off the draw, Jagr plays it back, and Danny Green one hands it ahead for the Devils. 4-2 hockey game here at Prudential Center. Devils trying to turn it around after a road trip that saw them. And the wraparound try by the Red Wings again is stopped by the pad of Corey Schneider, and that's Franzen in front, causing more havoc for Detroit.
Yeah, he goes to the net hard, and there Andy Green plays him tough in front. And the Red Wings are all of a sudden coming alive here, Steve. And Devils have to be very careful. Don't turn pucks over in their end. This is a good hockey team they're playing. It's not always going to go your way for the 60-minute effort, but it's how you handle those surges by the opposition. Especially when they're down 4-1, you had to expect it. Now they made it 4-2. That's the Detroit Red Wings. So this next 5 minutes, important stretch for the Devils to really slow the Red Wings down.
Zetterberg wins the draw. The shot by Quincy is fired wide. Abdelkader works it loose for Gustav Nyquist, but taken away by Green. And here's Severson. Nyquist just took it back from Damon Severson. He'll get some help here from Havlat, but we have a penalty coming up, and it's a hold.
Well, just like that, Devils go to the penalty box. Red Wings have themselves a chance to cut this game to 1. They go on the power play there. You see Damon Severson right there with the left hand on Nyquist, who was really didn't stop moving his feet. And that's what made Damon Severson draw the hold on Nyquist, but real good effort from Nyquist to not stop moving those feet, churning those feet, and that's when you get caught as far as the defender.
What suddenly turns into an extremely important penalty kill for the Devils. Kindle shoots, save made by Corey Schneider. 4 seconds into the man advantage.
Saw Corey look behind him a little bit, was making sure he squeezed that puck all the way there off the draw. Red Wings win it clean, and Kindle winds up. Sheahan in front, but you see Corey Schneider much better lately at really squeezing the puck and really conscious of it.
Datsuk wins the draw back and now holds here on the half board for Detroit. Power play for the Red Wings as they trail by 2. Datsuk back to Kindle at the point. That shot blocked away by Jacob Josephson. Tatar plays it down low. Sheehan to the circle. Datsuk, neat little move, the centering try, and that shot by Sheehan is fired wide. Held by Datsuk again. Throws it in front. Puck got by everyone. Now Kindle at the point, battling Zajac for the puck. Devils trying to push it out of the zone. Initially they can't. It's taken by Weiss. Stephen Weiss now for the Red Wings. Minute 15 to go on the power play for Detroit. Here's Tatar at the circle. His shot blocked away off the netting. Faceoff stays in the Devils' end.
Boy, oh boy, is Datsuk nifty with that puck. If you aren't looking around for a loose player, he's going to find him. And the Devils did a pretty good job of keeping things to the outside, but the Red Wings so dangerous. And fortunately, the puck finally deflects into the netting and give Devils a little break here, although you still have the same guys out there. Or Travis Zajac, I should say, was able to change there.
Off the draw, Kronwall keeps it in the zone, gives here to Nyquist and down low. That pass gets by everybody, and Karam's out of the zone, short-handed. This is Henrique. Has Elias with him, and the pass broken up. Kronwall got a stick on it, and Franzen back the other way. Works it across. Nyquist backhands it in deep. Henrik Zetterberg steps on to continue the power play. Drops it back for Franzen. To the circle, Nyquist shoots. Pass saved by Schneider. Still loose, and Corey Schneider now has got it.
Corey Schneider gobbles that up, and that's the danger you face when you're on a 2-on-1 like the Devils were short-handed. You try to make that pass. Broken up by the defenseman. The Red Wings are able to come back the right way instead of shooting the puck on net. That was Henrique to Elias. Take a look right here, you see, and now they're both guys are caught, and the Red Wings coming the other way. I'm not saying Adam can't make that play. Then it's an empty net, but you got to be awfully careful because the Red Wings made a real good play and able to go the other way with numbers.
Stoppage in play on a hand pass here in the Detroit uniform, so the faceoff will come outside the zone. Mike Babcock knows 38 seconds left on this power play, which could tighten the screws on the Devils a bit as they led 4-1 just a moment ago. Off the draw, Kindle collects here for Detroit. Jakob Kindle drops this back, and it's controlled by Datsuk. With Sheehan and Weiss, the forward alignment on the power play, and Tatar at the point. Redirected in front, off a skate in front. It's loose at the side of the net. Oh, Datsuk couldn't bury it on Schneider. Taken by Kindle. The shot by Tatar, and a pad save by Schneider. Backhanded out of the zone by Gianta.
If the Devils go on to complete this game, look no further than the save off Datsuk by Corey Schneider right there. Looked like he had the empty net. Schneider somehow got across. Here it is right here. Puck comes loose, poked over to Datsyuk, and Corey Schneider right there finds it as well and able to get over. Datsyuk thinks he's got a whole net and he gets a blocker on it. Terrific reaction save from Corey Schneider there.
4 shots on the Detroit power play. Corey Schneider got them all. And Kindle will bank this out of the zone. Red Wings have taken the lead on the shot board 16-11 at this point in the game. We've played for almost 5 minutes of period 2, and Zidlitsky will fire in. Tuomo Ruutu along the near boards. It's jarred loose by Zajac and skated away by Detroit. Devils a long way from home here, just early in the second period, and they lead 4-2. Ruutu collects and punches it out. Or so we thought, and it's taken here by Harold instead. Tuomo Ruutu, Devils leader in hits coming into the game tonight. Zajac, nifty little move, carries into the Detroit end. Ruutu for Jagr. Great move to avoid the defenseman Quincy. Centering try by Jagr. Deflects back to Jelena. He shoots, and that's off a stick in front. Yurko tries to clear it out of the zone. Couldn't do it and take it instead by Quincy and the Red Wings, and worked across. Quick shot, a stick to side by Schneider, and deflects out of play.
We look at the Metropolitan standings, Steve, and you don't want to fall too far behind. Fortunately for the Devils, we know they have not been real consistent this season or haven't put a real winning streak together. 1 game under 500 yet. 3 points out of a playoff position. Only the Islanders and Pittsburgh separating themselves from the rest of the pack there. So you want to put a good string together of games, and the Devils hoping they can start with one tonight against Detroit. Long way to go, like you mentioned.
Icing is the call here, and the Devils fans, anyway, disagree with the race to the dot. That was Elias trying. Hell, so does Pete DeBoer.
Yeah, they seem to call it so quickly. Don't give an opportunity for the race to transpire. The Devils back in their own end for a face-off on the icing call.
Day after Thanksgiving turning into a big hockey day on the calendar now. Islanders suffer a rare defeat tonight, losing to Washington 5-2 on the back end of the home-and-home series there. The Rangers winners this afternoon at Philadelphia 3-0. Nyquist centering try in front for Zetterberg, and that's broken up. Comes here to the stick of Harold, who shovels it away.
Well, you can see the Red Wings not happy when they were down 4-1 with the way things were going. Have really picked it up here.
Havlat collects the puck and couldn't clear the zone. It's Zetterberg controlling. Sent back in, and Harold blocks that away and gives here to Camilleri. Mike Camilleri, working on a 2-goal night, fires into the Detroit end. Abdelkader settles this down and gets moving here for the Red Wings. Played across. Eriksson is over the line. Eriksson's shot gloved. Tricky puck deflected into Corey Schneider. He holds on. 13:15 to go in the second. 4-2 New Jersey on top. Here's the game recap so far, brought to you by our good friends, our Tri-Honda dealers. Jaromir Jagr, his 709th career goal to move past Mike Gartner on the all-time list. Damon Severson, first point since November 11th, a 2-assist game for him. Xavier Ouellet, the 21-year-old defenseman, with his first career National Hockey League goal, keeping Detroit in the game. That made the score 4-2, but this is, by and large, the Red Wings starting to take the game away. Since that goal, they've outshot the Devils 9-1 in this second period.
The Devils have to change the momentum here.
Here's Weiss. Played in front. Datsyuk down low. Helm trying to get a shot away. Oh, he tried to put it on the forehand and waited too long. Digging at the loose puck, Henrique. Glove down by Quincy. And Zubris gets it as far as center ice, where Jagr goes back to Dinas Zubris.
Detroit came oh so close to making this a 1-goal game, if not for losing the puck on their own. Really moving it around, and Devils have to slow what's going on down a little bit here. Detroit starting to use their skill.
Icing is the call here against the Red Wings.
There's Danny DeKeyser, the highly sought free agent out of Western Michigan University, Steve. 9 assists this year. So he's ditching the puck a lot, doesn't have a goal, but he He's a big, strong kid, blocks a lot of shots, and been a real nice defenseman since coming to Detroit Red Wings. You know, again, another defenseman who wasn't drafted, late bloomer.
Shot by Zidlitsky deflected away, and he's got bragging rights now in the Detroit Rock locker room. Today, his high school alma mater, Warren De La Salle, won the Division II Michigan State Football Championship by a score of 44-8. They beat Muskegon Mona Shores, and that counts because that's Justin Abdelkader's alma mater, so he's going to have bragging rights for a very long time.
The Devils are going on the power play here. Kyle Quincy takes a penalty. Quincy's going to get a slashing call here behind them. They're right there. Knocks the stick out of Travis Zajak's hand in his own end right there. Boy, those calls. I know they call them, Steve, but those are the ones I don't like as far as the referees. But they have to make them. That's the way they call them now. And whether you break a player's stick or knock it out of his hand, and sometimes you're not hanging on to loses. So I think the Devils get one here. So take advantage of it.
Off the draw, Zajac fights for the loose puck. And another slash is coming up. And another Red Wing to the box now.
Boy, what a chance. What an opportunity for the Devils. Nicholas Cronwall going off.
This is practically a full 5-on-3 power play. A minute 56. In the initial penalty to Quincy.
Coach Babcock screaming at the refs, not happy with these calls. Maybe they are a little ticky-tacky, but they seem to call them all year long. You want consistency there. Right there, you see Cronwall takes another, and it's Travis Zajac, the same player, knocks Zajak's stick out of his hand. That was a little more of a forceful whack out of the hands than I thought Quincy's was.
Off the draw, Yager. A 5-on-3 power play for the Devils as Zidlitsky gets it back from Eliash. 4 forwards in the alignment for the Devils. In the corner, it's taken by Zajac. Behind the net, Yager. Travis Zajac nurses it back to the point, and Zidlitsky will cross up here with Eliash. Patrick loses the puck only momentarily and now plays down low. Zajac to Yager. Yager tries to throw one in front, deflects back. Eliash has got this at the point. Played to Zidlitsky. Zajac works it across. They're cutting Eliash. He shoots. That's blocked away in front. Yager quickly on the loose puck and back to the stick of Eliash. Patrick Eliash played down low. This is Yager. Back for Eliash. They load it for Zidlitsky and a save by Mrazek. All pressure time for the Devils as it comes back to Eliash. Zidlitsky again off the skate. Now back for Eliash to the circle, and Yager throws it in front. Cavallari at the doorstep, and that's stopped by Mrazek. Kept alive. Zidlitsky down low. Here's Zajac. Plays it across. Gets it back from Cavallari. Oh, Mrazek got a stick out to deny Zajac at the side, and it's sent the length of the ice.
Wow. I don't know if Miller got a piece of that as well. Looked like he had the empty net, but Devils passing the puck just behind their sticks. You got a lot of time here with a 2-man advantage, and they got to put those sticks on the tape so they can put it in the empty net.
Under half a minute to go in the 5-on-3. Zidlitsky down low. Here's Ryder. Camilleri remains on from that initial wave. Michael Ryder steps up, shoots, gloved by Mrazek, and he holds on.
You mentioned a lot of zone time. Michael Ryder there, fanned on his shot a little bit. Here's the opportunity. Travis Zajac feeds Camilleri, comes back to him. Boy. I think Drew Miller up high might have got a stick on that as well. And Mrazek might have got a little piece, Steve. Regardless, desperation play, good job in front by Mrazek in goal, as well as Drew Miller helping out. The Devils, not a lot of time here, but you still can set one up. It's an important time of the game as well to get that killer instinct.
Off the draw, it's taken here. Henrique guides it back to the point, and Gelinas. Final 10 seconds of the 5-on-3. Tried to play it across. Glendening broke that up. A shot from the far side, blocked away. Controlled by Severson. Plays it across. Gelinas fires off the backboard. It's broken up. Quincy's out of the box. Another Red Wing is right behind him. Quincy on the loose puck, and it's sticked aside by Schneider. Cronwall is out. We're back to 5-on-5. Tremendous kill by the Red Wings and Peter Mrazek.
It was tremendous kill, but missed opportunity from the Devils power play 5-on-3. And again, I mentioned, Steve, the pucks were just behind. And they had to take time in settling it down. And you got to have those passes tape to tape.
That's been known to fuel a team once or twice in the past. A big kill on a 5-on-3. Zetterberg sends this in, but the puck goes in as the Red Wings are offside. Better than halfway through the second. It's 4-2 New Jersey. Tonight's Geico hometown hero is U.S. Marine Corps Master Sergeant Patrick Hart from Picatinny Arsenal, New Jersey. Patrick has been a member of our armed forces for 20 years. He's been deployed 8 times since joining the Marines in 1994. Patrick Hart, more than a few, said thank you yesterday when they sat down on the holiday, and thank you for all you do.
Well, it's great to see members of the armed forces at our games. We've seen it the last 2-3 weeks. A nice presence, and can't thank them enough. You're absolutely right, Steve. And yesterday was a day again to show that thanks.
And all days moving forward too. Hope he's enjoying the game. Most of the crowd. It's a good one on this Friday night at Prudential Center. Watching the Devils lead 4-2. And this puck fired in by the Red Wings. Chopped at by Severson, and the puck deflects out of the zone. Corey Schneider has started all but once this season for New Jersey, looking for victory number 10 on the year. Bernier puts the brakes on, threw it across, that got by Josephson, and Nyquist works it ahead. Devils reach out and intercept. Gianta dragged down as he was gaining the zone, and we play on.
This is what the Devils need, this fourth line, to bring a little energy back. I know the Devils had the 5-3, but prior to that, it was all Detroit Red Wings for a stretch.
Trying to control Abdelkader. Big check along the far board. Steven Gianta involved in that. And another penalty is coming up. Let's see who the guilty party is.
It's going to be Steven Gianta. I think he gave a same call as the last two. A slashing call. I think he knocks the stick out of his hand right there. You see his stick broke, actually. I, for one, don't like this rule whatsoever. Very similar to the Devils' 2 calls. I don't like the rule. Every time a guy, I think it should be a judgment call on the actual, how hard the slash is in the attempt, but that's what they call nowadays. And he did break his stick, so that's a penalty.
Datsuk works it across. Here's Tatar on the Detroit power play. Play down low. Sheehan put it on the forehand. Broken up by Schneider, but Datsuk quickly on the puck and works it across. Here's Tatar firing, and that's blocked away in front. Stephen Weiss, 4 points in his last 3 games. Heating up for Detroit from his return from injury. On the puck now. Played down low to Sheehan. Here's Weiss, who gets it back. Drops it to the point. Controlled here by the Red Wings, and Tatar guides it back to the point. Kindle to the circle, and Weiss. Here's Datsuk. Works it back. Weiss shoots, and he rang it off the pipe. Karams to Zajac, who clears it away.
Well, Stephen Weiss rifles the wrister on the pass from Datsuk, and you see the Red Wings, they really focus on passing that puck right through the seam. Devils got to get sticks in the lane there. Wings really effective with that. We saw it last power play as well.
There's a nervous quiet that's come over the crowd here watching the Red Wings on this power play. Drop back to the point, and Kronwall controls here for Detroit. Nicholas Kronwall takes into the corner, plays it behind the net, and here's Franzen. Centering try, one-timer in front by Nyquist is fired wide. Guided back, intercepted by Elias. Big play as they were looking to set up the point man from Franzen, and it's sent the length of the ice.
There was 20 seconds, just over 20 seconds to go, and this Red Wings power play moves the puck awfully well.
Zetterberg centering try in front. Franzen able to sweep it away and control. Here's Johan Franzen in the circle. Centering try by Zetterberg. They score! Zetterberg sets up Justin Abdelkader in front, and it's a 1-goal game at Prudential Center.
Big turn of events, big swing. Devils don't capitalize on a 5-on-3. The Wings come right back with a power play chance of their own, and just at the end of this power play, Another terrific pass. The Red Wings. Just a one-touch pass from behind the net. Zetterberg in front to Abdelkader, and he's able to beat Corey Schneider. No Devil defenseman able to get there in time. And I'll tell you, you let the Red Wings set up on the power play, and they are going to pick you apart. There's just too many guys that are able to make those perfect passes, and they waste no time. Zetterberg with the one-touch pass.
7th of the year for Justin Abdelkader, and now firing is Datsuk, who hit the post. Here's Weiss. Crosses up with Datsuk, and the puck taken here by the Devils and Zidlitsky. Under 7 minutes to go in the second period. 7 on the board between the two teams combined, as Zajac has it in the corner, and he's roughed up. Ruutu and Ryder able to help guide it back to the point, and Harold plays it across. Here's Zidlitsky, tried to throw it towards goal. That's broken up. Helm trying to one-hand it out of the zone. He could not. Puck got by Ryder, and the Red Wings skate this away. Aaron Helm darting back the other way for Detroit. Zetterberg and Franzen get the assists on the Abdelkader goal. We see Ryder with a shot, saved by Mrazek, and he got the rebound as well.
Good chance for Michael Ryder, picks up his own rebound, and Mrazek comes out to take away the angle.
Larson behind his net was Jelena. Red Wings now with the shots advantage, 21-14. They trail 4-3. Winds around to the stick of Jaromir Jagr. Had the first goal of the night. There have been 6 since, and it comes here to Sheehan. Riley Sheehan sends it in deep. Franzen delivers a hit on Larson. Dragged down as Franzen. Another penalty coming up against Adam Larson. And another Detroit power play when we come back.
Red Wings coming full force now. Datsuk almost ties the hockey game up there with the crossbar. We saw a crossbar earlier, but the Red Wings end up scoring on that power play anyway. And there you see Adam Larson with the right hand around Franzen. He sells it pretty good. He's a big man to go down like that. Having said that, the referees are letting nothing go, and they're calling everything, so you've got to be careful. And now the Devils have to figure a way to shut this power play down, because they've had no answer so far, Steve, with a lot of shots and a couple of goals by the Red Wings on the power play.
Detroit power play 2 for 3 going into this chance as Andy Green cleared it away, but Kronwall starts right back up. Devils were one more good night on the penalty kill from getting out of the bottom 5, and now it's gone in the other direction here tonight. Pass guided back towards a blind point, and Kronwall and Detroit will have to retreat. Uneventful first half minute of the power play, which is what the Devils want, and that's pumped away, controlled by the skate of Zetterberg, who gains the zone. Detroit's leading scorer, Henrik Zetterberg, tied up by Elias, takes the puck away and lifts it and sends it the length of the ice.
Well, much better. Andy Green, Pat Elias right on Zetterberg. For me, if you have Zetterberg and Datsuk with the puck and you give them time and let them face the play, they'll pick you apart. I'd rather go after them, not give them that time, and there'll be open men, but what the heck.
Datsuk taken off his stick. The shot by Tatar blocked away. Controlled by Sheehan. Pavel Datsuk holds, and the Red Wings set up. 50 seconds to go on the man advantage. Here's Sheehan trying to turn with it again. That's been his patch of real estate on the power play. Broken up, but controlled here. Weiss with the centering try. Broken up by Harold. Tries to backhand it out of the zone, but Kindle with the hold. Chopped out by Andy Green in the corner. It's jarred loose, and now Weiss on the puck for the Red Wings. Back for Jakob Kindle. Dishes off. Here's Tatar. That shot blocked away. Deflects back to Kindle. The Czech defenseman to Weiss. Back to Kindle. Thought about the pass for Datsuk. Instead sent it towards goal. Deflects to Weiss. And now behind the net it's Sheehan. Here's Datsuk again. Final 9 seconds of the man advantage for the Red Wings. Pavel Datsuk throws it in front. Loose at the side of the net. Corey Schneider has got it with Tatar jamming at the side of the net. Deb Placey's downstairs. Deb, what do you have?
Well, there was a trade in the NHL today. Stay with us. At the second intermission, the Maven will be with us, plus a second act for Marty Brodeur. Back to you, Steve.
Look forward to that, Deb, and that means trades and rumors and such. that Stan Fischler is in the house, and he's moments away.
Sorry, Steve, every power play we're seeing all zone time for the Detroit Red Wings, and this is a team, boy, can they handle the puck, and you have to get on them.
Off the draw, fired away by Quincy, stick save by Schneider. Larsson's out of the box, and penalty time is up.
Oh, finally the Devils are able to kill one off. Even though they spent time in their end, Schneider with a couple of saves, but the Devils, I thought, were better at getting on the key players, getting on Zetterberg, getting on Datsyuk, because these guys are just too good at passing the puck if you give them too much time and don't get on them.
One shot on that last Detroit power play. DeKeyser sends this back in deep. Even strength. Red Wings still looking for the tying goal here. Drew Miller. Checked behind the net by Severson. Quincy got a stick in, trying to hold the zone. Kyle Quincy, but it's chopped away by Dainis Zubras. Quincy under pressure from Dainis Zubras, who delivers a hit in the corner. Taken away by Glendening, who works it ahead. Yurko. Pass ahead for Drew Miller, and now following up DeKeyser into the Devils zone. Yurko, centering try, that deflected onto Corey Schneider, who made the stop and worked across to Jagr. Here's Jaromir Jagr, puts the brakes on, waits for the trailer. That's Marek Zidlitsky, who shoots in a pad save. Mrazek.
First good scoring chance for the Devils since the 5-on-3. Haven't had a whole lot. They've had to kill some penalties here. Good shot by Zidlitsky.
Nyquist on the puck for Detroit. Gives this up. Abdelkader shoots, and it's a save into the glove of Corey Schneider. Well, a Cadillac trivia question comes now, and I'll preface this. It's always a good decision to watch Visa Devils game night at the start of your evening. Hosted by the very capable Deb Placey. Which two players did the Devils acquire as compensation for the Red Wings signing of free agent Troy Crowder? If you were watching the pregame, Pete DeBoer gave you the answer.
I was on that team, and we did get an awful lot. But Troy Crowder was the heavyweight champion of the league at the time. And that was very prevalent and important. A lot more emphasis on having a tough guy.
The answer is in the building at ice level. We'll leave it at that. Zetterberg guides this to Abdelkader, and the quick pass across to Gustav Nyquist, who's off to the races. Nyquist puts the brakes on Larsson, continues to hold. Eriksson shoots. They look for the redirection with Zetterberg at the side of the net, but it went wide. Zetterberg, one-time shot, save made by Schneider. The rebound loose in front, jamming at it Zetterberg, but that wouldn't go. Big stop by Corey Schneider. Shot from the point is fired away wide. Zajac tries to work it out of the zone. Eriksson holding the zone here for Detroit and taken by Adam Larsson. Red Wings have had ample opportunity to tie this game. They trailed by 3 at one point. This is an icing call against New Jersey.
Well, the Devils have spent far too much time in their end this period. And here we see it right here. Wings zipping that puck around. Abdelkader in front. He finds Zetterberg, and Adam Larsson helps out in front of the net along with Corey Schneider to keep this a one-goal lead for the Devils. And the Devils are going to call their timeout here as they have the same guys out on the ice for the icing. And DeBoer wants to give them a little rest and maybe regroup and settle them down a little bit, Steve, because the Red Wings really have been dominant for a lot of this second period.
Zajac, the face-off man, when we get back to it. So Pete DeBoer uses the timeout, 1:24 to go in the second period. Red Wings already have unleashed 25 shots at Corey Schneider. They had 37 in the first meeting between the teams back on November 7th. That was a Detroit victory by the final of 4-2. And the Devils would tell you that night the score was flattering for them. It was Detroit controlling play for much of that night at Joe Louis Arena, even without Datsyuk in the lineup that night.
I mean, we saw the Devils have one of the better periods of the season in the first and start off well in the second. 8 to 10 of those shots have been on the power play for the Detroit Red Wings. So we know Devils need to stay out of the box. Red Wings are really moving the puck around well on the power play. it carries over 5-5 as well.
Here's Datsyuk trying to shake loose of Travis Zajac. Green with a nice hit on Stephen Weiss. Andy Green tries to lift it out of harm's way and does. Danny DeKeyser back to collect this out of Western Michigan University. Defenseman for the Red Wings plays it and gives to Datsyuk. Picks up Darren Helm at the line. Return pass for Datsyuk. Swatted out of midair. Final minute of period 2. Havlat lifts it out of the zone and played here by Kronwall. Just got that puck to Danny DeKeyser and played back into the Devils' end. Icing waved off. Larson will play it for New Jersey. Stretch pass by Larson. Elias guides it into the Red Wings' end. So important for Detroit not to let the score get out of hand. They wanted to have Jimmy Howard take the entire night off, and here they are with Mrazek very much alive in the game. Harold couldn't get it by the forecheck of Sheahan. In the Devils' zone. Here's Franzen stepping up, shooting, and a save made by Schneider with 9 seconds to go in the period. You get the sense the Devils would like to get to the intermission. Tomorrow night on MSG, John Tavares and the Islanders are waiting. Live coverage gets underway at 6:30 with Visa Devils game night. Devils Islanders tomorrow night on the MSG network. Their 5-game winning streak snapped earlier tonight by the Washington Capitals.
You mentioned it, Steve. 9.5 seconds left in the period. The Devils want to come out of this period alive and up by 1 goal.
Face off again to the left of Corey Schneider. Zetterberg and Henry. Off the draw, Nyquist takes the puck, looking for a final chance in front. That deflected in front of Corey Schneider. Skated away by Zubris. 2 periods are in the books, and the Devils still with the lead after 40 minutes of play. We've had more than a few swings in the game tonight. New Jersey with the lead, at least 20 minutes to go. Deb and Johnny Mack and the Maven Stan Fischler all straight ahead. Devils fans, take advantage of this special Cyber Monday offer and save 15 to 25% on Devils single game tickets. The earlier you buy, the bigger your savings. Visit NewJerseyDevils.com/Cyber Monday to see all Prudential Center Cyber Monday offers. And it looks as if this man is set to call it a career. Daniel Alfredsson, longtime Ottawa Senator. He played for the Detroit Red Wings last season, and all signs point towards a press conference in Ottawa, not Detroit, on December 4th to wrap up his career. Not a bad last year. 18 goals, 31 assists, 17 years with the Senators, 444 career goals. I'm interested in seeing what the Hall of Fame committee says about Daniel Alfredsson, because he's one of those guys, Dano, I think his career, with the exception of Patrick Elias winning 2 cups, is comparable numerically to Elias.
Yeah, he was a terrific player for so many years in this league, and I remember a young Daniel Alfredsson, and you mentioned his numbers, pretty darn good last year, but I remember a young Daniel Alfredsson who was awfully tough to contain as a defenseman when he played for the Ottawa Senators. What a great career he had. Probably on the bubble of the Hall of Fame, but a guy that certainly deserves consideration.
Mr. Ottawa Senator for the longest time, Daniel Alfredsson. It's a good one here at Prudential Center. 3rd period underway. Devils need it. Winning 1 out of 4 on the Western Canadian trip. And Andy Green is called for a penalty 20 seconds in. And this is what you wanted to avoid.
I think they might be calling both guys. I'm not 100% here, Steve. You're going to see right here.
I got New Jersey interference. I got Detroit 2 minutes embellishment.
There you go. You have it. You see, and he just gets his arm out there a little bit. Didn't really pull him down or tug him, but you see Nyquist go down heavily. And we've got some whistle-happy referees this evening, Steve.
I love listening to Paul Dvorsky announce them, though. I got this guy for interference, and I got him 14 for embellishment. 4-on-4. The open ice is certainly to Detroit's liking as they trail by 1. Datsyuk will take the draw against the Devils' best in that spot, Travis Zajac. Loose puck taken here by Harold, but taken away by the Red Wings, and back to Jakob Kindl, who shoots. And that's blocked away in front off of his own teammate, Johan Franzen.
Yeah, Franzen fell down in front. Devils got careless, gave the puck away. You just can't do that in your own end against this team. They're so good with their sticks. They'll pick off passes. You have to make sure they're crisp and on the stick.
Minute 30 to go on the 4-on-4. Here's Kindl, who's seen a lot of the puck tonight here. The Czech-born defenseman for the Red Wings tries to carry over the line. He's met by Elias instead. Datsuk can't control. Jágr nearly with a chance, but played back here to the stick of Danny DeKeyser. Picked up here by Elias. Able to carry in, crosses up with Camilleri. Now Jelena shoots, and a save made by Mrazek. Camilleri quickly on the loose puck and punches across, taken off the boards by Zidlitsky. Hounded by Tatar, and then he backhands it in deeper. Tomas Tatar gives to Sheahan, and the Red Wings come back the other way. 4-3 Devils lead here on the third. Tatar puts the brakes on, looks for the trailer to Kaiser, off the glove of Corey Schneider, and punched away by Jelena.
Corey Schneider with a glove save, pops up. Looked like the Red Wings were going to have an empty net. And fortunately for the Devils, knocked away by Eric Jelena.
Picked up here by Sheahan. Dishes across to Kyle Quincy. 22 seconds to go in the 4-on-4 situation as Larson works it away and back out to center, where Quincy is on the puck for Detroit. Here's DeKeyser carrying in for the Red Wings. Able to drop it back. Zetterberg tried to throw it towards goal. Knocked off the stick of Severson. Picked up here by Jágr.
Abdelkader lost his stick, had to go to the bench pursuing Jágr.
He stays on the ice after collecting another. Now Gianta ridden off the play by Quincy, and DeKeyser works it across. Effective breakout here by the Devils, and Zetterberg works it across to Nyquist. Puck winds around off the stick of Peter Harold. Zetterberg bumps with Gianta and Bernier, and it deflects back here to Ouellet. Special night for him. Defenseman with his first National Hockey League goal. Jelena delivers a big hit on the far side on Abdelkader.
That's a great hit by Eric Jelena on Abdelkader, not letting him get that puck. You don't hit the Red Wings and slow them down, and they'll make you look silly at times. That was a big hit.
Weiss shot deflected away off the stick of Zidlitsky, and punched back. Michael Ryder trying to get on the puck. Elias follows up and shovels it across to Camilleri. Opening 3+ minutes of period 3. Ryder into the Red Wing zone. Throws Kronwall against the boards. Weiss picks up the puck for Detroit. Battle on the far side. Elias. Two Red Wings, including Datsuk, converge on him, and they send Darren Helm on his way. Here's Helm trying to get by Zidlitsky, and he's ridden into the boards. Marek Zidlitsky now into the attack as Elias guides this into the Red Wings' end. Icing is waved off.
2 consecutive big hits by Devils defensemen. First Jelena, then there Zidlitsky on Darren Helm.
Larson can't clear the zone. DeKeyser played it across. Yurko trying to pick up the loose puck. Instead, Jágr is there to control. And batted out of midair by DeKeyser. Dinas Zubras fights for this along the near boards. He's pinned. Zubras, Jágr, and Zajac, the line put together here now for this shift as DeKeyser takes this behind his own goal. It's a sellout crowd tonight at Prudential Center. Devils trying to treat them to a victory here, home for the first time in 13 days as this deflects out.
Well, we finally get a whistle. Here's some of the replays. DeKeyser breaking in with the quick, hard wrist shot that Schneider couldn't corral, and there the rebound. Jelena clears. There's Eric Jelena with the big hit on Abdelkader along the wall. And then there on Helm, Marek Zidlitsky. Something you must do. We haven't seen enough of this season from the Devils. When it's there, you got to take skilled teams, skilled players out of the play with big hits, and there they did that, knocking them down.
Bernier at center ice for the Devils. Got by the stick of Kronwall, and now getting chase is Josephson. Sheahan behind his own net. Josephson works the puck free. Bernier guides it back. Peter Harold covering at the point. just by the outstretched stick of Gionta, and that try off the side of the net. Tatar deep in his own end. Worked across. Kronwall is hit. Bernier delivers the check. This puck deflected and blocked away in front by Eriksson. Jonathan Eriksson knocking Gionta to the ice right in front of the goal. Tended to by Mrazek, and now Franzen's got it for Detroit. Game has taken a physical turn, hasn't it?
It has. Devils finishing them in. Good shift out of the fourth line there. Applying pressure in Detroit's end.
Zidlitsky throws one behind the net. Camilleri trying to get on the loose puck. Bumps with Tatar. Got it back to the point. Oh, Severson lost control. Oh, the recollect by Severson. Otherwise, Abdelkader was off and running.
Oh, boy. Abdelkader almost had a clear-cut breakaway from his own blue line. Severson able to recover just in time on the bouncing puck.
Picked up here by DeKeyser off the boards. DeKeyser walks in. His shot. Devils got a stick on that. Abdelkader absorbs a check. Pass back to the point for Zetterberg is intercepted here by Elias. Will slow the pace a bit, and the Devils get the change they want. Abdelkader at center. Picked off here by Zajac. Travis works it across. Picks up Yager on a save by Mrazek.
Good quick shot by Yager, and Mrazek starting to look a little more comfortable in the nets compared to the first and early second period.
And sent back here to Zubris at center ice. 6.5 into period 3. Chopped out by Zetterberg. Zubris able to follow up and send in deep. Yager in the corner. Puts it on the forehand. Back to the point. Harold has got it. Peter Harold. Wrist shot. It deflected just wide. And off the backboard covering up is Peter Mrazek. 13-17 to go in the third. Devils cling to the 4-3 lead.
Here are Timberland Pro Hard Hits of the game highlights. And this came within about a minute 30. Eric Jelena with the big hit along the wall, and Abdelkader. Zidlitsky takes out Helm hard, and Kronwall feels that big body blow from Steve Bernier. That's your Timberland Pro Hard Hits, and I like to see that, Steve. I don't see enough of that in the game today, and there you saw Devils finishing them in and finishing them hard, and I mentioned it and will reiterate it. You have to do that against the skilled Detroit Red Wings team, or they will pick you apart.
It's helped them neutralize the game a little bit, do you feel, here in these first 6 minutes?
It changed the first 6 minutes here where the Devils have spent some time in Detroit's end.
Another big collision. Gionta involved with that. He and Jonathan Eriksson tied up. One-timer in front by Ruutu, and he missed the net. Here's Zidlitsky. Sends back in deep. Bernier trying to collect. Great job by Datsyuk to work it out of tight space, but the Devils with a chance anyway. Bernier turned and shot and fired wide from his knees. Back in the Devils' end, Harold works it across, and now Elias gets on his horse. Patrick Elias goes wide on Kindle, and that's fought off by the goaltender Mrazek. Peter Mrazek rebounding. He's allowed 4, but he stopped 14 as Helm ridden off the play by Andy Green. Jarred loose at the side of the net. Collected by the Devils. Ryder can't work it out of the zone. Held in by Datsyuk. Played across and picks up Helm. Turns and fires towards goal, but it's behind the net. Ouellet sent it back in deep, and now Josephson on the puck and tipped out of the zone by Patrick Elias. Red Wings get started again quickly. Sheahan steers it into the Devils zone. It winds around to the far side. They look for Sheahan in front. Intercepted by Yager, and now Zubris back the other way. Works his way around to Kaiser. Funnels in deep. Pinching in on the far side. Eric Jelena, the defenseman, and now Zubris in the corner. He's tied up by Quincy. Puck battle continues. Yager is there as well. Couple of big bodies. Zubris knocked down to the ice. Red Wings able to punch it out to center, and here's Tatar on the move for the Red Wings. Works his way around Jelena and puts the brakes on. Centering try broken up, and Yager lays it ahead to Zubris.
Well, again, Eric Jelena almost looked like he was beaten, but he stayed with it. Firm on the puck, knocked his man down, and you like to see that as he continues to grow and as far as in his own end defensively, and using that big frame a couple of times now.
Schneider behind the net. 11 minutes to go, third period. Devils work it across. Taken here by Bernier. Sends it in deep. Ouellette giving chase. Jacob Josephson and the puck battle deep in the Red Wing zone. He and Bernier digging ferociously for it. Now Bernier. Gianta's the man camped in front. Kindle jarring at the loose puck deep in the Red Wing zone. Officials keep side of the puck. No whistle, and it's worked across to the stick of Gustav Nyquist. He backhands it in. The 28-goal man from a year ago. Nyquist. Now Severson works it ahead. Devils can't get it out of the zone initially. Now on a second try, played across to Camilleri. 2 goals tonight for Camilleri, but he's tied up at center by Glendening.
Well, Devils much stronger the first 10 minutes of the third period along the walls where the Red Wings were dominating at times. And
Glendening, puck deflected right back to him. Over the line, works it back to the point. Kronwall on the puck, plays it ahead. Return pass from Jurco. Kronwall, backhand try. They score on a rebound in front. Drew Miller. And the game is tied at 4.
well, unbelievable. Devils doing a good job in the first 10 minutes, spending time in Detroit's end. They are unable to capitalize. This is a great give and go. This is a set play. Kronwall gives the puck, then he goes down the wall, gets it back with the nifty backhand pass. He's able to cut to the net. Schneider makes the initial save, and Miller's there all alone to put that loose puck in the net and tie this game up. And the Devils cannot be happy about this. Up 4-1. Now we've got a tie hockey game with 9:53 left in it.
Drew Miller will tell you he's the 10th person in his family to attend Michigan State. One of the others is his brother Ryan, who shut out the Devils 3 nights ago. They've had enough of the Miller family for now, as it's taken here by Josephson. 4-4 game after the Devils had led 4-1 at one point in the second. And Quincy sends it back into the Devils' end. Severson punches it ahead for Josephson, who sends it in deep. So we're back to where we started, a tie game, and this is knocked down with a high stick. Face-off will be in the Detroit end when we come back. 4-4, 9:25 to go. Let's take it back to the Cadillac trivia question. Which 2 players did the Devils acquire as compensation for the Red Wings signing of Troy Crowder? We said Pete DeBoer helped you with the answer during Visa Devils game night. Dano, assistant coach Dave Barr with Randy McKay.
Dave Barr and my teammate in 2 Stanley Cups, 95 and 2000. One of the toughest players I've ever played with, and that's Randy McKay. He wore the heart on his sleeve and was so instrumental in the New Jersey Devils' first 2 cups.
4-4 is the story here. Kronwall with 2 assists, including one on the tying goal for the Red Wings. Shot by Zidlitsky, nearly got through. Looking for the redirect is New Jersey. Tatar tries to work it ahead. Instead, Josephson slowed that up, and the Red Wings work it across for Jonathan Ericsson. Miller's first of the season from Kronwall and Jurco. A beautiful return pass to Niklas Kronwall to help set up that tying goal for Detroit.
You can see that developing up here. I know it happens quickly, but you're going pick them up. Obviously, they've worked at that because Kronwall knew exactly what they were doing together with Jurco standing still with the give and go.
Sheahan tried to throw one in front, collected instead by Zidlitsky. Here's Marek Zidlitsky for New Jersey. Long pass, picks up Ruutu. Tuomo Ruutu shot fought off by Mrazek. Loose in front, Gianta. Able to deflect it into the corner. Now Gianta on the loose puck. Checked by Kindle, puck taken away by Ruutu. Thought about the pass back to Severson, reverses course instead. Ruutu walks in front, shoots and fires it wide. And Zetterberg will lift this away. Gianta works it ahead for Ruutu. Tuomo Ruutu's found his offensive game in the last week or so. Sends in deep, but now heads to the bench.
Well, Devils getting a few shots, and Mrazek leaving the rebounds there still. You got to go to the net hard. Look for that loose puck.
Here's Green back in his own end. Andy Green. Miller gets a stick on that. Now Ryder back to collect. Elias works it across. Puck picked up here by Severson. Here's the defenseman into the attack. He's got Camilleri with him. Camilleri shoots and he fires it wide.
Camilleri, that puck was a little bit ahead of him. He didn't miss by much, though.
Glendening with a pickpocket of Elias at center. Guided around and now taken away by Jelena. He'll lift it out of the zone all the way back into the Detroit end. This is icing against the Devils. 7:16 remaining in regulation time. Coming up, the Foxwoods Final Five. Foxwoods excitement every day. Sellout crowd on hand at Prudential Center tonight. That's not a surprise. These fans miss their hockey team. New Jersey's played 14 road games, the most of any team in the East. Only San Jose has played more in the NHL.
They saw their Devils get off to a 4-1 lead. Just to see Detroit charge back.
Jelena laid across, and here's Larson on the puck for New Jersey. Adam Larson lifts this ahead. Bouncing puck controlled by Stephen Weiss. Datsuk at center ice can't control. Taken back the other way. Josephson on the puck. Following up, Yager. Yager navigates through a couple of white jerseys. Now has to deal with Kronwall. He does so. Centering try by Zubris. Pops all the way back towards the point. Bouncing puck. Tough to handle for Harold and sent back in.
And if we haven't noticed, Steve, we haven't seen Travis Sajak and Adam Henrique out here. And it looks like both guys are not on the bench, so that is a big hole for the Devils to fill here with two of your key forwards out right now.
I'm told Henrique has not played in the third period, Kenny. It's Gianta across. Here's Bernier shooting and a save by Mrazek. Franzen darts back the other way for the Red Wings. And played across. Tatar shovels one in front. Caught by Schneider. And he stops the clock with 6 minutes to go.
No report yet, I guess, what happened to Adam Henrique. You mentioned hadn't played at all in the third period. Travis Sajak we have not seen. I thought he was out there earlier on, but not lately. And that's why we've seen Yager. He's been out there an awful lot getting time. Patrick Elias, Camilleri now with Ryder out there.
Sajak has had 4 shifts in the third period, but we're 14 minutes into it. Corey Schneider behind the net. 4-4 game. Michigan native Andy Green ahead for Camilleri. Dishes off, and now Severson. Stopped at the blue line and punched back into the Devils' end where Green is on the loose puck. Abdelkader giving chase. Justin Abdelkader, big goal in the game tonight. Sent back towards the point, and that's blocked away in front. And the puck deflects out of play. We'll step aside. 5.5 to go. 4-4 Prudential Center. After the game, get reaction from Coach Pete DeBoer and the Devils players. Highlights, Johnny Mac's breakdown on the Devils post-game show. It's immediately following the game here on MSG+. 5.5 minutes to go, third period. Red Wings have battled back from 3 down to tie the game at 4 on a busy Friday in the NHL. The Rangers shut out the Flyers behind Cam Talbot today. Islanders lose in Washington. As we see the Kaiser play it across, and that shot deflects up high in front and off high on a Red Wings player. That's Darren Helm in front. His stick went sailing away.
And I think the puck might have deflected up into his face, and if it didn't, it might have went in the back of the net because it was going toward the net, Steve. See, doesn't look like he's too rough a shape and not a lot of blood coming out. You see right here, there's the replay. I think Peter Harold got a piece of it up in Helm's face area. Yeah, it hit Harold's stick and then came up, and I don't know if it was the stick or the puck that hit Darren Helm, but the puck stays out.
He's ready to take the next shift. Sent across and played here by Detroit. Yager on the move for the Devils, but here's Weiss going wide for Detroit. Pad save by Schneider, who got the leg down. Jaromir Jagr ahead for Josephson, and that puck deflects out to center. Zubris ties up Kronwall. Here's Jagr trying to break through on Tomas Jurko. Jurko got just enough of him, played back Zidlitsky, and worked across. Harold shot that deflected wide.
Again, Peter Harold with a good shot and hit a Red Wing.
Zidlitsky plays it to the corner, and that's where Zubras operates. Deflected in front. Josephson the follow-up try, and it's blocked away and skated away by Yurko.
Good work by Zubras, Josephson, and Yager getting opportunities in front of the Red Wing goaltender.
Lifted away by Giunta. Loose puck taken away here by Ruutu. Tuomo Ruutu, his shot into the chest protector of Mrazek, who holds on with 4:15 to go. And that means you're watching the Foxwoods Final Five. Foxwoods, excitement every day. Visit foxwoods.com. Is there a hero in the house?
They saw Tuomo Ruutu snap the puck from a sharp angle, and you don't have to tell him to shoot too often because he does that, and I think that's what the Devils have to continue to do, as Mrazek has left some rebounds there. But you got to get guys, the second and third forwards, going to the area where the puck's coming, the rebounds in the high slot.
Franzen sends it into the Devils' end, collected here by Camilleri. If you're just joining us, Travis Zajac, Adam Henrique not playing here at this point in the third period. Collected by Camilleri. He's got Ryder with him. Plays it across. Ryder stopped in front somehow by Mrazek and Detroit. Michael Ryder put it on a backhand, but it didn't go. Now Elias across, looking for Camilleri, but broken up.
Well, what a feed by Mike Camilleri on the 2-on-1. The saucer pass to Ryder, and he makes the move. And somehow puck goes over the net, deflected upstairs.
Held by Bernier and played ahead for Ruutu. Devils playing with just 10 forwards at this point in the game as it comes out to center, controlled here by Green. And across to Damon Severson. Snapped a scoreless drought with a 2-assist night, the rookie defenseman this evening. Now Zetterberg back in the Devils' end. Poke checked away by Severson, but Zetterberg strong on the puck. Punched away by Bernier.
A good job closing the gap on Zetterberg there. As we know, when he gains that blue line and turns up, it's going to be awfully tough to stop him. He'll find a loose hand.
Kindle fired into the Devils' end. Thought that might have gone off the netting. Instead, we play on. Puck stays in play, according to the officials, and taken here by Yager. Yager tries to pick up Josephson. Jacob Josephson. Yager collects here. Works it back to the point. Peter Harold plays it across. Here's Zidlitsky. Zidlitsky, wrist shot through traffic and held by Mrazek, the goaltender for Detroit.
Well, again, good job by the Devils D, and Jaromir Yager protecting the puck, getting it back to the point. Good shot on that. There's Michael Ryder, and Mrazek on the move. Ryder tries to gets his stick out right here. Good poke check, smart heads-up play, and Ryder was being hounded from behind. Glorious opportunity to break this 4-4 tie, and the Devils have had a lot of chances here in the third. Much better period than in the second period, even though they've been outscored 1-0.
Yager shoots off the draw, and the save made by Mrazek.
Much more evenly played, shall I say, Steve, because the second was all Detroit, as we know, and they continue to press and fire shots on Mrazek, trying to find a way to regain the lead.
Here's Elias to take the draw, but it's won back by Pavel Datsyuk. Helm gloves this down and sends it back in for Detroit. Here's Green on the puck for the Devils. Collected by Kronwall. And now Eriksson has this for the Red Wings. Lifted ahead, giving chase. Severson. Can't get it out of the zone. Now Green. Quickly on the loose puck. Datsyuk kept it alive off the leg. The veteran Russian player takes and now controls on the far board. Tried to work it back. Weiss in traffic. Gives here to Datsyuk. Works it to DeKeyser. Thrown to the side of net, and Weiss is on the puck again. Now Quincy hammers it back in. Darren Helm. This is that line with three centermen put together for Detroit. Loose in front. Taken here by Jelena and banked out of the zone. Well, check that. Severson cleared it away. It's icing against the Devils with 1:28 remaining in the third.
Well, there again, Datsyuk and Helm. Good shift there. Red Wings get some time in the Devils' end. Nothing too dangerous towards Schneider. Devils stayed in position, but an important face-off here with 1:28 left in the Devils' zone.
One back by Sheahan. Eriksson gives to Kronwall, who plays it in deep. Franzen behind the net. Johan Franzen, one hand on the stick. He's hounded by Andy Green and checked into the corner. Devils out shooting Detroit 8-3 here in the third, but they've surrendered the lead. Bernier tries to chip it out of the zone. Bouncing puck at center. Camilleri trying to get on it. Tatar would have none of it.
Red Wings defense so active, they stay in as long as possible in the offensive zone.
Under a minute to go in the third. Tatar collecting for Detroit. Shoots and a save made by Schneider. Zetterberg behind the net. Crosses up with Franzen. Now the captain Zetterberg plays it across. Quick shot by Quincy, and that's blocked away in front. Strong on the puck is Zetterberg. Tatar sends it in deep. Now Zetterberg crosses up with Franzen behind the net. Late pressure here by Detroit with half a minute to go. Harold fights off Zetterberg, enables Jagr to take the puck away, and back come the Devils. Jagr dishes off. He's got Ruutu with him. He shoots, and that's blocked away. Karam's around and picked up here by Zetterberg. Henrik Zetterberg over the line, works it across. He's got Nyquist, and he's checked off the puck by Ruutu.
Good play by Ruutu, sticking with the man.
Severson, final chance for the Devils. Elias across, looking for Zubras, and broken up at the last moment. And with that, we head for overtime. A dramatic finish. We've got more hockey to come. 1 point, a hard point earned.
Jersey Devils Overtime is presented to you commercial-free by New York Life Insurance Company. Keep good going.
Welcome back to the New York Life Overtime Report. New York Life, keep good going. 4-4 is the score. Detroit battling back from 3 down to tie. And what a chance late.
Detroit tied it up in the third period, and the Devils get a great chance right near the end of that period. Patrick Elias tries to beat Zubras, and Kronwall goes down and blocks that pass. Real good defensive play. I know it's easy from up here, but you like to see him shoot that, wouldn't you, Steve?
Well, Elias's next assist will be a milestone 600, and that would have made the milestone all the more memorable in the last few seconds of regulation.
If he connects, it's a perfect play.
Yeah.
It's an empty net for Zubras. Nicholas Kronwall, though, the defenseman back, one of the better defensemen, or one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League, and you know he's going to make it awfully difficult for you to get that pass across. And the Devils relinquished a 4-1 lead, but I thought that period they were outscored 1-0. But I thought they played much better than they did in the second period. Again, though, were unable to score another goal. I thought Mrazek really settled down. Devils had some chances. He made the saves.
So, overtime begins. No Henrique or Zajac for the Devils. So let's watch with interest the pairings put together by Pete DeBoer. Camilleri and Ryder will be the first duo out for New Jersey. Severson and Green, the defense pair. Pavel Datsyuk can play in open ice, not so open ice, whatever you give him. Abdelkader is with him, and we're underway in overtime. Justin Abdelkader, a big goal in the comeback for Detroit. Hauled down by Severson, collected here by Datsyuk. Pavel Datsyuk crosses up with Eriksson. Jonathan Eriksson on the puck for the Red Wings. Holds. Here's Datsyuk. Nifty little move around Severson. Looks for space to shoot. He was closed down at the last moment. Red Wings keep this alive. Shoveled into the corner, and Andy Green on the puck for the Devils gives to Camilleri.
Well, sometimes that almost seems unfair, doesn't it? I mean, Datsyuk, great chance, great move.
Camilleri takes it back the other way. Slows and now crosses with Harold. Mike Camilleri dishes off. Taken here by Zidlitsky. Stick handles away from traffic, played in front of the net. Camilleri holding, hounded by Nyquist. Puck not out of the zone. It's kept alive by Zidlitsky. Marek Zidlitsky goes wide on Kronwall. Still going. Loses control of the puck, and it's taken away here by Zetterberg. Minute into overtime. Here's Henrik Zetterberg back the other way. He's got Nyquist with him. Nyquist walks in. He shoots. That's blocked away. Harold. Nyquist able to collect again and guide it back to DeKeyser. Danny DeKeyser at the point. Plays it across. Controlled by Quincy. Tried to throw it off the skate of Corey Schneider, but taken by Ryder and lifted away. This puck is off the scoreboard, and the faceoff will come back into the Devils' end.
That's one way to relieve pressure. Flip the puck, hit the scoreboard, but the faceoff in the Devils' zone. The Devils had themselves an opportunity. Mike Camilleri in front. He was looking to spin around, but he had a streaking defenseman. I think it was Zidlitsky coming with him, unable to get it to him with being hounded by the Red Wings defense.
Elias and Jagr step on together here, a minute and a half into overtime. Red Wings get the drawback. The Kaiser shot caught by Schneider, who makes the save, and the quick whistle.
Red Wings winning the faceoffs in the Devils' end here. They somehow got to tie them up if you're not going to win it.
One area you miss Zajac, Dano.
Yeah, you're going to miss and Adam Henrique as well. So Patrick Elias taking this one against Sheahan.
Off the draw, it's one back by the Red Wings, but it splits the D-man, and all the way back, the Kaiser will collect here. Second time in as many games against the Red Wings, the Devils have conceded better than 30 shots in a game. 4-4, we're in overtime. Worked across, Tatar. Played off the boards by Zelenov, but taken off his stick. Tomas Tatar guides it back to the point. Quincy across, and now to Kaiser. That pass just off the mark. Centering try in front by Sheahan, collected by Patrick Elias instead. And played back to Larson. Here's Adam Larson in overtime. Works it across, and now Zelenov's on his way. He fires in. Devils get some fresh legs on. Jagr to the bench. Gianta comes on. As it's worked ahead to the stick of Darren Helm. They'll complete the change now. Jagr off to the bench. Played across. Tuomo Ruutu now crosses up with Gianta. His shot is caught by Mrazek, who stops the clock.
You see Ruutu, Gianta getting some overtime play here with the absence of Henrique and Zajac, and doing a good job getting the shot in net. And they'll stay out here. Green and Severson, the point men.
Pete DeBoer used his timeout back in the second period. Mike Babcock still with his in his pocket, and off the draw, it's controlled again by the Red Wings. Xavier Ouellet, defenseman with his first NHL goal earlier tonight for the Red Wings, works it ahead, and Kindle sends Datsuk on his way. Pavel Datsuk shoots. That's blocked away by Green. Ruutu sees it knocked off his stick by Datsuk. Pass intercepted by Gianta, and here's Andy Green on the move for the Devils. Gives back to Gianta, who dumps it in. Tuomo Ruutu gives chase. Gets around one man in Ouellet. Works it back to the point, taken here by Severson. Dishes off to Green. Devils set up here. Green, wrist shot, deflected. Mrazek looks behind him. It's collected by Kindle at the side of the net.
So close, Andy Green with the quick wrist shot. Mrazek finds it.
Ouellet back the other way, shoots on Schneider. The rebound sitting there for Ouellet. He can't control. Severson tries to get it out of the zone, and now collected here by Jagr. Minute and a half to go in overtime. Jagr ahead. He's got Andy Green. Devils are onside. Here's Jagr. Tried to get the shot away. He was fought off well, and Jagr just throws a Red Wing to the ice. That was big Nicholas Kronwall, and the puck battle continues. Nyquist has this for Detroit and works it across.
Jagr showing some strength there on Kronwall, throwing him to the ice.
6'3", 230. He used all of it right there.
Last one of the play in overtime.
1 minute in overtime. Nyquist on the receiving end of this. Gustav Nyquist throws it across. That deflects here to the stick of Elias. And this puck deflected out of play. It's off a Red Wing stick.
Here are the Devils, nothing fancy here. Andy Green head up, gets the puck to the net. That's deflected up high by Ruutu right here. Great hand-eye, gets a little piece of that. Mrazek thinks it's behind him. And that puck somehow stays out. Red Wings clear. He wasn't so sure where that was, Steve. But got to keep shooting.
That was the Devils' 25th shot. Green, Severson, and now Josephson is on in overtime. Jacob Josephson into the Red Wings end. Knocked off his stick by Sheahan. 35 seconds to go. Here's Severson, who gives back to Green. Worked across, Andy Green. Onside, his shot, stick broken. Tatar got in the way of that as well. Andy Green gets a fresh stick, now back to continue the shift. Jarred loose and taken here by the Red Wings. 15 seconds to go. DeKeyser works it across, and here's Tatar on the move. Tomas Tatar puts the brakes on and fires it wide. The long carom out of the zone, and this will do it. High drama at Prudential Center. We're going to a shootout. Corey Schneider has a victory in the shootout this season. The Devils snapped that streak of futility, the longest shootout losing streak in NHL history, earlier this year. That was when the dry scrape was in effect. Without the dry scrape, they'll look to even their record in the shootout at 2-2 this year. It looked as if it might be a very long night for Peter Mrazek early in the second period. He's rebounded from that marvelously. His Red Wings team will shoot first. We're going to see Datsyuk at some point, so why not lead off with him?
And the Devils are going to have to score a goal or two in the shootout. We know some of the skilled players for Detroit have a lot of success in this.
Well, few players are more entertaining in this situation than Pavel Datsyuk. Corey Schneider is at the other end. Let's watch the two of them as the shootout begins. Pavel Datsyuk goes backhand. Oh, Schneider got the leg out.
Corey Schneider stays with him. You see he comes with a little move there and tries to drag it with the backhand. We've seen so many guys so effectively, the skilled guys put that into the empty net. Schneider stay with it.
Josephson scored twice in shootouts already this year. Jacob Josephson goes wide, and he's closed down by Mrazek.
I lost the puck there, Steve. He tried a couple head fakes, then go to his forehand and just spun away from him there. Boy, he might have seen him score like that against Winnipeg.
Tomas Tatar is next up for the Red Wings.
3 for 10 in the shootout, as we saw.
Let's see what Schneider has after a great save to start this shootout. Tatar in, deliberate move, backhand try. Schneider closed him down.
I don't know how you stay with guys' hands that quick, coming so slowly, but Corey Schneider gets the job done again here. There you see Tatar. A couple of moves, head fake, forehand, backhand, and Corey Schneider gets the left pad on it. He was in tight, couldn't quite get it upstairs.
Second for the Devils, Mike Camilleri on a 2-goal night tonight. Can he deliver again in the shootout? Camilleri in on Mrazek, shoots, who makes the save. Peter Mrazek denies Mike Camilleri.
And Mike Camilleri come down the right side, swoops out wide and tries to go upstairs. Mrazek's there to make the save.
Third inning. Gustav Nyquist. In quickly for Detroit. Nyquist shoots, he scores! It puts the pressure on the Devils.
There you see Gustav Nyquist with a little head fake.
The third trigger by the Devils, number 17.
Corey Schneider dips his left shoulder just a little bit. Nyquist with not much to shoot at, buries it.
Michael Ryder needs to score for New Jersey. Ryder in on Mrazek. He makes the save, and in a shootout, the Red Wings come from behind and defeat the Devils by the score of 5-4. Off the bench, the Detroit Red Wings to mob 22-year-old Peter Mrazek.
I mentioned it looked like a long night for Mrazek early on. He settled in. Here's the final save to seal the victory there. You see Mrazek just goes down with the right pad. And Michael Ryder unable to get it up high enough.
Peter Mrazek recalled from the AHL after an injury to Jonas Gustafsson. Gets the win.
The goal of the game is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop at ChooseNissan.com. It's the game winner in the shootout, the third shooter for the Detroit Red Wings, Gustav Nyquist, with a nifty little head fake and able to go upstairs with not a whole lot to shoot at. That's our Nissan goal of the game.
Won't add to his team-leading total of 10 goals, but it is the deciding one in the shootout. And the Detroit Red Wings collect their 13th win of the season. It drops the Devils to 9-10-4. With a quick turnaround tomorrow night on Long Island. 5-4, the Red Wings come from behind to win it. We're back with more at the Rock in a moment.